And we're live with our third keynote of the day. Thank you everyone for being here. Actually, it's our second keynote of the day. I'm excited about this guest because she's been a longtime friend of the Global Education Conference, which was the precursor to GLOW and of GLOW. And it'll be fun catching up with her today. Dr. Julie Lindsay is a global collaboration pioneer and the author of The Global Educator and Flattening Classrooms, Engaging Minds. She's led digital learning initiatives from classrooms to universities across multiple continents, and she's currently heading the University of Southern Queensland AI Pedagogy Project. Hopefully I said that correctly. What I love about Julie's work is that she doesn't just adopt technology, she thinks deeply about why and how we use it. She asks the questions that matter. How do we leverage AI and digital tools to create more human, more connected learning? And how do we prepare students for a world that we can barely imagine? Julie embodies the EdTech for Tomorrow theme that GLOW celebrates, not technology for its own sake, but technology that enhances meaning, connection, and real-world impact. Her keynote will challenge you to think about your role as an educator in an AI-enabled world. Please welcome my friend, Dr. Julie Lindsay.
Thank you, Lucy, and hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here and to catch up with the GLOW event. And preparing this presentation has really taken me back quite a few years to the work that Lucy and I used to do, and Lucy's such a fabulous leader in this space. So look, this is a little bit auto-ethnographical, but I do have some key messages for everyone based on, goodness, many years of experience now. So let's get started. I'm calling this morphing with purpose, and it's an evolution through my career with lots of interesting bits in it, I hope. So there are 3 sections to this, and I'll just won't dwell on that slide. But let me just share with you, I was at a conference last week in New Zealand, and an educator came up to me and said, she said, "Oh my goodness, Julie Lindsay, oh my goodness, I'm finally getting to meet you. You changed my life." I thought, my goodness, what have I done now? And she said, "Oh, look, it must have been at least 10 years ago." She said, "I think it was 2010. And the work that you were doing with global collaboration and it really pointed me in the right direction." And I was so flabbergasted because people hadn't said that to me, not for a long time anyway. Higher ed's a little bit quieter, a little bit more serene than that. But it was so affirming to an extent. And I just wanted to share that with you. Sometimes you sort of keep going through life, doing things, you think, oh, is this getting through to anybody? And it does. So, if you're out there doing things, if you're an innovator, someone is listening. Somehow you're impacting someone's life. So that's a little message there as well. So let's have a look. The first morph. Of course, I'm from Australia. You can hear my accent is Australian. I'm actually from Melbourne. I don't live in Melbourne anymore, but I was a music teacher for 15 years or more in Melbourne. And then I became a global person. So my global journey was over 15 years. My husband and I taught in international schools across 5 different countries. And this, although I was doing some global stuff in the 1990s before we left Australia, this experience and all the bits that went with it really set up my trajectory for the rest of my career. And it's quite an unusual experience. Every international educator, there might be some international educators listening today, everyone has their own unique experience. This is mine. This is where we went. These are the experiences, the countries that we taught in. So we started with Zambia. We took my 3-year-old daughter, that's Violet Rose there with me, to Zambia, much to the horror of my family. And in Zambia, I learned resilience, compassion, and above all, curiosity about the world. And that's actually our maid, Roida, who was exactly my age, totally different circumstances to my life, but was a major feature in our lives for the 3 years that we were in Zambia. And it was hard. It was actually quite a hard experience moving out of middle-class Melbourne into the situation that Zambia was in 1998. But then we said, right, okay, I think we better move on. So as it turned out, and I'd like to add that we didn't choose these places chose us. We weren't the sort of international educators who said, let's go and see what this place looks like, then we'll decide if we want to teach there. No, we'd just turn up to a job fair or turn up to an interview and, okay, we've got the job, we'll see what it's like when we get there. So rightly or wrongly, that's what we did. So we ended up in Kuwait. And Kuwait taught me perseverance, adaptability, and independence. We were in Kuwait when the Second Gulf War broke out. And of course, if you remember, back then it was a very short war, 3 weeks only. But I was back in Australia with Violet during that time because the school said, right, no, you leave. One parent and the children can go. But Kuwait, very conservative culture, but just beautiful when you drive up the road along the Arabian Gulf. Just a beautiful scenery. So that was Kuwait. That's just a bit of a mix mash of images there. But then, of course, Bangladesh, Qatar, and Beijing. And this is where things started to speed up in terms of what I was doing with my career, what I was doing with educational technology. I studied at the George Washington University. This is another little story. When we talk about distance and online education, and this is a major focus of the work I'm doing now and have done for 25 plus years, I started an online master's degree with George Washington University in 2001 while I was living in Kuwait, and I finished it when I was living in Bangladesh, our next stop. And that master's degree did not require me to go on campus at all at any point. I did have to do a 3-hour exam proctored by my head of school in Bangladesh, but that was it. And, people today say, you have to come on campus to finish off your degree, whatever. No, you don't. When you have a well-designed degree at an excellent institution like George Washington in Washington, D.C. there, you don't. So that was a real turning point for me, interacting with that degree and building my capacity as a leader in educational technology. I do remember part of that degree was studying American education policy, which was a little confronting. I remember saying to my tutor, I'm an Australian living in Kuwait, teaching at the time the British curriculum. We were teaching IGCSE, British International, whatever it was, it's gone out of my head. And I'm studying American policy. This is really doing my head in. But anyway, I got through it. Then, of course, we moved to Qatar after that. I'm going to go through some of these points in later slides. And we ended up in Beijing, and you can see us on the Great Wall there. We lived about a 45-minute drive from one section of the Great Wall. There isn't just one section. There's a whole lot of different sections. And, of course, my daughter graduated. She was 18 when we left Beijing and came back to Australia. Just a shout out, for 14 years in a row, I attended the ISTE conference. And I think that's the newer logo. I couldn't find or remember what the original logo was when I first started to join ISTE. But ISTE was my tribe. And that's where I met Lucy. That's where I met a lot of people. Some of you may recognize Steve Hargaden, David Warlick, Vicky Davis, and others in that image there. I was on the ISTE board. It's very small print, but I was the international representative on the ISTE board for 2 years. And me in that pink outfit, which I don't own anymore. When you travel around the world a lot, you don't always take everything with you. But the hat and the jacket, Lucy reminded me about this yesterday. So I said, I'm going to dig out that photo. That's when I got the Making IT Happen. I joined the club at ISTE 1 year. But that was certainly a major catalyst for my understanding of EdTech and learning and teaching. And of course, this was the heydays of ISTE were really 2006, 2007 onwards, when Web 2.0 became available for us to use in the classroom, and things started to get really exciting. And even though now I'm working with artificial intelligence, I'm working in higher education, so maybe that's why there's no real excitement. I'll talk about that later. But we were just so enthralled with Twitter. I remember when Twitter came out and when we started blogging and wikis, and it was so exciting that being able to create our own content online, being able to connect through social media. Young people these days, they don't I don't know that they've felt that. We went through that, and it was certainly a turning point for many of us. So when I was in Bangladesh, I was teaching, I was in the classroom, I was leading IT, I was leading the one-to-one program in the international school Dhaka. So we had a laptop program. This was, I started there in 2003. We had a laptop program for high school students. And it was during this time that I started or co-started the Flat Classroom project. Now, this was the very first project was between my grade 10 students and Vicky Davis's grade 10 students in Westwood Schools in Camilla, Georgia. And you can see I had this whole display on the classroom wall. We had learning concierges, we called them, people who mentored the students. We only had about 14 students in each of our classes, but we really flattened our learning by joining our students together, not in a show and tell style. And I do think that many people continue to do global collaborative learning in a show and tell. And this is not a presentation just about how to do global collaborative learning, but we actually got the students together. I said, right, you communicate with this person, you work through the process, you build something together. This whole co-creation piece was so important. It was such an exciting way that we designed this project. And in that first project, we got through it in 3 weeks. I don't know how we did it. I know I spent 2 weekends on the school campus with the students, helping them create videos and having pizza for lunch and things like that. But, that's what we did to do this. It was so exciting. So what happened then? A moment of inexplicable connection. Now, apart from the fact I was playing tennis in Bangladesh, my husband and I were in the C team for the Australian club, which is another story because we always lost our games. But while I was playing tennis one night, I got home and there was this email from Tom Friedman. And I wrote a blog post about it. And Tom wrote, he said, "Dear Julie, I read your blog about the Flat World Classroom." He meant the Flat Classroom project. "I was delighted to see it. Tell me how it goes. Yes, this is really Tom Friedman." So I thought, oh my goodness. And this was in 2006. You can see the date of my blog post, November 2006. So I went into school the next day to our head of school was called CEO. And I told him about this, and he said, how did he know you're doing this project? You're in Bangladesh and he's in America. How does he know this? And I said, he read my blog. And this look of, amazement on his face, he read your blog, So the power of social media to connect people, that really cemented it for me when that experience happened. And Tom was great. I was in contact with Tom for a few years after that. In fact, we co-wrote a couple of pages for the 3rd edition of The World is Flat. And the chapter is, if it's not happening, it's because you're not doing it. So if you don't have a copy of The World is Flat, it is a good book. I know it's a controversial book. Tom always writes things that are a little bit controversial, but it is worth, thanks Lucy for putting that up there. It is worth having a look at. And I think we're page 501 to 503. I'm not sure how I remember that, but there it is. So that was that. And then, of course, we weren't the first ones to talk about flat classrooms. And I want to shout out to a good friend, David Warlick, who I haven't been in contact for a long time, but David was a mentor, a guru at the ISTE conferences. And he talked about flattening classrooms and how do we drive learning when we can no longer rely on gravity. Where do we get the energy? So this is, we were talking about this. What happens when we flatten our classrooms? What happens when it's not the teacher up the front all the time? And it's, we still have classrooms. We still have higher education situations, of course, where the teacher is up the front and the students are being given content. And, it's taking a long time to move past this. And sometimes it's necessary, but most times it's not. All right, so the success of the Flat Classroom project saw us move into developing different projects. for different reasons. The Flat Classroom project, by the way, was based on the 10 flatteners in Tom's book. I mean, that's how the essence of how we connected. So we built this project around different themes, and the students were put in teams, or the initial one was just a partnership, 2 students, to create understanding around the theme, such as wireless connectivity, etc., and to build something around it. But then my family and I moved to Qatar, so we moved back to the Middle East, and I was the, what was my title? Something like ICT director or something for Qatar Academy, which was an amazing school. It was built by the Emir, and the Emir's second wife was very present in the running of the school to an extent. She was Qatar are very big on good quality education. Anyway, the long story short, the HSBC Bank approached the school and they said, "Oh, we've got $40,000 we want to give you. What would be a good thing you could spend it on?" And the head of school called me into his office and he said, "What do you think? What can you spend this money on?" And I said, "Oh, great." I said, "What I really want to do is run a conference. Let's bring people into Qatar. Let's flatten the world and bring people in and run this conference that is in person as well as virtual." So we ran a leadership workshop and student summit, as it says on that poster there, and we brought teachers and students from a number of different countries, as well as internal to Qatar, and we ran this amazing conference. We teamed up with ISTE. We had Don Knezek and Lynn Nolan. Some of you out there, if you're listening, may know the old days of ISTE. They came in as well, and we brought people from students with different backgrounds. And Edgar was a student from Ethiopia, and we were doing Vox Pops. So I had a whole media team. Let's document this. There's videos up on my website. There's lots of documentation about this event because it was quite a unique event. And Edgar in a Vox Pop said, "Learning is not necessarily about learning 1 + 1. It's about different cultures and learning about the world as a whole. It helps to make the world more of a global village." I'd like to know where this person is now. I think his father was higher up in the Ethiopian government, but such an astute person. And there, of course, the videos there of Edgar talking. So this is what the conference looked like. We had students and teachers sitting around the same table. We had conversations. We didn't have students over there and teachers over there. That main picture on the left there, this is a group of students from Australia who were not allowed to come to Qatar in 2009. Apparently it wasn't politically safe to come to Qatar. So I was so disappointed. We did have another smaller group from Australia, but this group were not allowed to come. Their school just sort of took the defensive side and said, "No, you're not coming." But these students came into school on a Sunday and presented. They presented their little bit and interacted with us virtually. So we were really pleased about that. It was written up in the Qatar Today magazine about what we did. So there's an article there, and I've just selected a piece from the article that says students in a flat classroom have to collaborate not only on a wiki and research the topic together, but also make individual multimedia projects. And for that, they have to get short clips from one of their other partners who are somewhere else in the world to put into their videos. It's called outsourcing. And this is what we did way back from 2006. Of course, at the actual conference, we were doing it in person, but most of our projects around that flat classroom theme, this is what we did. We said, right, we want to co-create something. I want a clip from you showing whatever. It was difficult. It was actually quite difficult, but students created the most amazing videos and statements about their collaboration. And I just think some of the work that they did back then, I have not seen duplicated in recent years, and certainly have not seen it in higher education yet. So that's interesting. All right, so all of the things we did, when you're innovative and you want to just keep moving forward, we had all these different projects. We had the Digitine project. We had the Eracism project. That was a student group, the award-winning student group at the first Flat Classroom project conference in Doha, came up with this idea for a project called Erasing Racism. So we built it. We built the project. Schools from around the world came in. We won some awards. We were shortlisted for the WISE Innovation Award. Now, WISE World Innovation Summit in Education is held in Qatar every year in Doha, and I think it was the first year or the second year it was held, we were shortlisted. I mean, it's really morphed into different things now, but it's still an amazing conference, an amazing opportunity for innovators to put their projects in for consideration. All right, so we kept moving forward, and one of the things we did next was when we moved, my family and I moved again to China, and we were in Beijing for 3 years, we ran another conference. So when Eastern and Western cultures came together, this was a bigger conference. My school actually supported it, and we had 100 students at this conference, quite a few from China, but also from other countries. Oman, for example, we had Middle East represented, we had Africa, I think we had USA, different countries coming in once again. And I just remember we had my good friend Kim Cafino come and help run the student summit. And I remember Kim and I standing up in front of these 100 students, many of them second language English. So many of the Chinese students were not comfortable with English. And we're going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with these students for 3 days? But, we had a process. We had the whole thing planned. And it was amazing. It was an amazing, amazing conference, the things that we did. So from that, or from the first few years of experience, we wrote this book, Flattening Classrooms, Engaging Minds, published by Pearson. It's got information in it that is still relevant today, but probably most of it, or certainly a lot of the links are dead now. I mean, the day that Wikispaces died was a very sad day. We had a lot of our stuff on Wikispaces. So, innovators are the victims of organizations or companies that get sold, get moved on, change their leadership, and they decide that no, they're not going to support certain levels of education. And we've seen that with Edmodo, we've seen it with Wikispaces. Luckily, we still have Padlet. Used to be called Wall Wisher, because that's something we use all the time. But this is where, the flexibility of working globally and working with people beyond your own borders, where you don't have necessarily control of the educational tools, the flexibility is so important. So one thing I've learned is if the tool disappears, you go and find something else pretty quickly, because you need tools to connect and collaborate. In that book, we talk about the 7 steps to flatten the classroom. This is an image that one of the students drew, and I just love it. I've used it for years, this little image. It's so great. But, I still talk about this now. I'm designing projects now for higher education where I still talk about these 7 steps and all of these C words, because they're relevant and pertinent to how we connect around the world, whatever level of education you're involved with. If you don't get that connection happening, you can't communicate. So what's the connection? Is the connection through email? A little bit boring. Is it through WhatsApp these days? Is it through whatever? Teams? My university, I can't use Teams outside of the university. Some universities or schools can. So you have to find your connection platforms, build your communication skills, build your digital global citizenship, etc., and also learn how to contribute and collaborate. Now, often we skip straight to collaboration without actually talking about contribution. And this is really pertinent at the moment as well, because, we put students into these global teams and we upskill teachers and educators, and I'm working with adult students now, of course, around the world, and we upskill these students. We talk about expectations, and yet still today, this week, in fact, I am grappling with students who say, yes, I want to do this, I'll be in this, and then they become invisible. They don't contribute. And other students get frustrated. So this is still a lifelong goal of mine, is to work out, why do people decide they want to do something and then don't follow through. And I will not rest until I work this out and work out a better system. So I'm just letting you know now. If you have any answers, please let me know. It's part of my research. It's part of my quest to build a better system. Maybe this system isn't right. I don't know yet. Anyway, so that's the process, and I'm still using that process. Now, this is an old slide I found. I was going through some stuff yesterday, and this is an old slide, and I thought, my goodness, I say exactly the same thing now. And this is basically from the original flat classroom days. You know, there are two types of communication, synchronous and asynchronous. And the asynchronous is really what it's all about. You cannot have totally synchronous global collaboration. It doesn't work. I mean, I already do meetings at 5 and 6 in the morning or 11 o'clock at night, but that's me. Most people don't do that. Most people need to get a bit more sleep, and we don't expect students to do that necessarily. All right, so we have to build these asynchronous communication platforms and tools. All right, so I just wanted to mention, you know, in terms of innovation, and our innovation is such a funny word. It's not a funny word. It's such a challenging word. I think about this a lot because to be an innovator means you have to change something or ask other people to change something. Because if nothing changes, you haven't actually innovated. Think about that. And we could talk about this all day, but I'm going to keep moving here. But I just found these little images, and I thought this would be fun to share with you. Now, the one on the left, you can see I'm blurred in the background. This was a workshop we ran in Mumbai. We went to Mumbai, or I went to Mumbai with different people a few times to run like a whole day student summit, well, whole day flat classroom type of workshop, just in one day. And, you know, this is 15, 12 years ago, something like that. And you can see that there's a couple of water bottles there with a phone on the top. Now, we were streaming. I'm actually on the computer doing, you know, something while there's something else is happening in the room. I'm not leading it. But that phone is streaming what we're doing, what's on the board there, on the wall, out to the world. So we were a very flat event. Okay, we had people joining us virtually. We were streaming things that were happening in the room. And we, you know, ingenuity, a phone sitting on 2 water bottles. I think my daughter was with me. She might have been the one who thought of that. She was usually pretty good at thinking of things like that rather than standing there holding the phone. The picture in the middle is when we were interviewed in, I think this was with Chris Smith. We were, you know, when we were doing Second Life stuff, and we were interviewed. That's Vicky, Kim, and I. We had our avatars. We were sitting on the couch there, talking about the Flat Classroom project to quite a large audience, actually. So they were fun days doing that, and that sort of disappeared, though it's coming back in certain ways now. And then, of course, that funny one on the right. That's when this is a group of educators in, I think it's Singapore, and I was talking to them. It was a professional development day, and we were talking, and they said, right, let's take a selfie. And this is what they did. They turned the computer around with my face on it and took a selfie. It was so funny. But, you know, you have to find the joy in all of this work that we do. All right, let me tell you a couple of man in the corridor moments. Now you think, what is going on here? All right, so I put together a presentation years ago for ISTE where I presented to quite a large number of people about my global journey, and I talked about different experiences that happened to me. I just want to pick out 2 that you might find fairly funny or fairly interesting. Now, on the left there is Bangladesh. This was one of our free dress days. They did actually have a uniform, but then every now and then we were allowed to come in our saris and our shalwar kameez and all that. And so, but this picture is showing you that these students, now grades 6, 7, and 8, we implemented a handheld program. Now, remember, this was in 2004, 2005. So we had palms. And the story behind this is that you couldn't buy these devices in Bangladesh at the time. But my CEO, shout out to John Sporandio, said, no, we're going to do this. Let's do it. And so I said, well, where are we going to get the devices? So he went back to the States at some point and brought back a suitcase full of these palms for staff to get used to using them. And he said, he sweated all the way through customs bringing these devices back in because he he was worried about, getting caught. It was tricky getting into Bangladesh with things, but he did, and we moved on. And finally, a supplier managed to get the devices in so the students could buy them in the local tech shop, etc. So, that was pretty adventurous. So they were adventurous days. So rather than say, oh, no, you can't buy them here. No, don't worry about it. We're not going to do it. He was very supportive. I did all the homework. I went to ISTE, I actually did a Palm workshop. I learned how to use it myself. I decided the pedagogical use of it, and we did it. I mean, they're not like phones are now, of course. They had limited use, but there was one app where you could do this little animation. And I remember sharing it back to colleagues in the States. And the next year I went to ISTE. I can't remember who it was now, but they had this poster with my students' work on it, of this animation that these students had done. And I said, oh, that's my students' work. They said, oh, we're wondering, we thought it was from you. So such a small world once again. Now, the image on the right is from Kuwait, when I was in Kuwait. Now, I worked in a school, the English School for Girls, in my first year there. We were there 3 years. I moved to another school after that. But this was a no man zone, right? So this no men were allowed on campus past the initial reception. So the girls could actually, if they wanted to, take off their hijabs and be free. They could do their sport, put their sport uniform on, etc., and it was completely free. But I was in charge of IT. I had to make sure the computers were working. And so I had to, if anything broke down, I had to wait until after 5 o'clock when all the girls went home and everyone was gone to let the technicians in. And so, I got a bit jack of this, and I said, well, is there some other way? I don't want to wait till late in the afternoon, because we had early starts in the Middle East. It was quite early in the morning. So we came to an agreement that if I called man in the corridor and gave the girls time to scuttle into classrooms, I could bring these technicians through. So that's what I did. I called man in the corridor. So I guess my message with this is, there's always a way, right? Don't settle for what you think might be the only way to do things, all right? And I'm not very good at taking no for an answer. You may have picked that up already in my travels. If I think this is a good thing to do, this is what I'll do. All right, let's move on. So the second morph I'm going to talk about is going from K to 12 to higher ed. That's me and my husband in 2019 when I graduated with my PhD. And I did my PhD when I came back to Australia because I wanted to do the research behind why I knew global collaborative learning was working, why it was engaging, why it changed lives, which it did. There's lots of stories there. So I did this research, and I decided to stay in higher education. In 2016, I wrote a book. ISTE published this book. It's actually, the hard copy book is only half the book because I got so carried away. I actually wrote it while I was doing my PhD, which was a really bad idea. But anyway, I got there. But it has 36 case studies in the ebook version, and some of those are up on my blog. There's Lucy. When the book that was 2016 at ISTE, and I was actually on the stage for 5 minutes with ISTE leaders there. Names have just gone out of my head, just to give it a bit of promotion as well. So this book is still very relevant. It has a lot of good things in it. In fact, one of the things that I introduced in this book was this term that I came up with called cosmogogy. And I based it on cosmos and agogy. So the Greek words meaning world or leading, so leading with the world. And I guess more recently, you can see on the right-hand side, that's a ChatGPT image that I've adopted now. What if learning wasn't bound by location, but by connection? And this is really the essence. So I've just seen Helene's message there. Oh, iEarn is amazing. I was very involved with iEarn. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. There's so many things I'm not going to have time to mention, but I'm so glad you put that in the chat window. So cosmogogy, I think in 2016, people weren't quite ready for the term. Maybe it was, I'm not sure, but it never sort of went anywhere. But it's starting to have legs now. I also talked about cosmogogical leadership in the book and being able to lead for that flat learning. I'm going to keep going through here. Part of my PhD outcome, one of the outcomes was the global collaborator mindset, with the 4 attributes of connection, openness, autonomy, and innovation. And there's a whole lot of words there. I'm not going to read all of those out. But if you want to be a global collaborator, develop this mindset. And my thesis actually shares that this is now tangible, it's teachable. We can teach how to be connected. We can teach how to be open. Autonomy and innovation are a little bit more difficult. Sometimes, depending on your work situation, you don't have that autonomy, but you need to try and grab as much of it as you can. And I think, we can teach innovation, but once again, depending on your situation, how innovative can you be? I'm just putting this overlay here because now in the AI era, I'm relating this more to the use of AI. And I'll come back to that again as well. I also came up with this online global collaborative learning framework, which has the global collaborator mindset on the outside and the competencies, beliefs, and conceptual change, and the OGCL, online global collaborative learning construct in the middle. And I won't go into that too much at this point, but I have got some blog posts out there about it. All right, let's move into current day. From human-centered to human AI world ecosystems. Let's see. Now, let me talk about my travels this year. So I'm going to jump right up to this year. And some of you may know Dr. Gary Steger there. I met up with Gary in Italy. I was on sabbatical this year. I had 6 months off from regular university work, and I actually went to Europe for 4 months. And it's been a fabulous experience, fabulous professional learning. I actually met Gary in Italy to do his Constructing Modern Knowledge conference, which I never got to in the States. This is the first time he ran it outside of USA. And big shout out to Gary because he's running it again next year in Italy. Please go. If you're in Europe or you just want to get out of wherever you are, go to this event. It's amazing. Okay, it really is amazing. And you just leave all of your prejudices or beliefs, or not beliefs, but you just leave all your baggage at the door and you go in and you open your mind and your heart to learning. And this is what Gary does. And Sylvia, of course, Sylvia Martinez. So I learned a lot about the Reggio Emilia approach because it was actually held in Reggio Emilia. And I'm sure there are people listening who know more about this than I do, but just very briefly, and this is aimed at 0 to 6 in the town of Reggio Emilia. And now I know it's replicated across the world. We have replications in Australia, but it's never the same because this is contextual, right? So, what really hit me was the teacher as researchers and practicing the pedagogy of listening. Making learning visible, that's something I do. I've always said make learning visible. How can we document what we're doing? How do we share it? I'm very open with what we do. And that's part of this approach as well. Of course, a constructive process. And they talked a lot about difference between working in groups as a group and being a group. And I've been thinking about that ever since. We can put students in teams, we can put teachers in teams, but are they a group? How do they be a group? How do you actually get deeper into that, building empathy, building understanding, trust, so that you can actually work together? And this is something else that I'm grappling with at the moment because we tend to think it's going to just happen naturally. And I can tell you from experience, and you probably have your own experiences, it doesn't, of course. All right, so then I spent 2.5 months in Finland. There's a little map there. I was in Jyväskylä. That's how you pronounce that, Jyväskylä, University of Jyväskylä in the Finnish Institute of Educational Research. Just some images of me walking the forest. Luantopolku means nature trail. That image of snow. I was there in April. It did snow again in April. That's out of my apartment window. I was walking distance to a jazz club, some of my friends there. The university meals were fabulous. And of course, I was there as the summer started and the waterways and the little islands. That was from a boat trip, that little image there. So Finland was a fabulous experience. Some of the things educationally that I interacted with, Jukka is a friend now who is a grade 5 teacher. I went to visit him at his school. He builds things. He has a very active classroom. He has stand-up desks. He has these wobble boards. Students can move while they're learning. That's me and him in front of this tech It's like a big game platform. So students can actually go and play games at break time. He's written this book called The Me Book. Please have a look at it. It's about emotional wellness, self-awareness, personal growth. This is a major theme in Finland. Now, I'm not saying it's not in other countries, but planetary wellness is a term I hadn't heard until I got to Finland. You know, we talk about sustainability, but planetary wellness is every second sentence, it seemed, and it's great. A couple of things there, that bottom right-hand corner, DigiVisio launched last year. This is a higher education initiative. They've brought 35 higher education institutions together on the one platform to offer courses across Finland and across the world. Some of these are in English, some of them are free. Have a look, see what you think. I'm hoping to do some research on this. I'm actually going back to Finland next year on a fellowship, so there's more adventure waiting. There's the Innovative Learning Environments group that I interacted with. They're focused more on K-12, and Educator, Education for the Future. That was another group that they sort of interconnect these groups on the Jyväskylä campus there, and they're focused on K-12 as well. Just to think about Finland, their higher education is not particularly online, and this DigiVisio is a major step for them to move things into an online format. I went to Tallinn. Tallinn is just a 2-hour ferry ride from Helsinki, and it's not a ferry. I was getting a bit worried because I hadn't taken my travel sickness tablets. I get a bit seasick. It's not a ferry, it's a cruise ship. My goodness, this is amazing cruise ship to go 2 hours across the way there. Anyway, we went to the university, we went to the school. That's my friend Christoph in this was a K-9 level school. And of course, Tallinn is very cold and snowy, etc. Their whole sports field is totally enclosed all of the time. That's what happens there. Estonia, have a look at this. Estonia have this project called AI Leap that they launched this year, and it's very visionary. It's actually been pushed by private industry as well as government support. Very ambitious, and they really want Estonia to be a leader in technology-infused education and to build technology capacity amongst their population. So have a look at that. It's amazing. All right, other things I've been dabbling with, HyFlex learning. Some of you may know Brian Beattie from the University of San Francisco. He talks about HyFlex. My colleague and I, Lisa Jacka, adopted his model and then built our own. He has 4 attributes. We have 3: choice, flat learning, and access. So we've got a whole HyFlex thing happening at my university, still in pilot mode, trying to transform online learning. We're a 70% online learning university, trying to transform it with some new ideas. Flat learning, of course, bringing flat learning into higher education, trying to give it some contextual meaning for academics who are not always trained in education and think that it is still okay to stand and lecture, which it's not. And here it is again. Asynchronous is the glue that holds online learning together. And this is a slide that I use all the time at the moment. And harking back to that previous slide where I said we were talking about it a long time ago, and still people say, oh, but how's that going to work when we can't meet at the same time because you're 12 hours ahead? Well, asynchronous is the glue, and this is a key message. Cosmogogy, I'm working on that a lot now this year. I've developed a Cosmogogy learning ecosystem, and this is the vision statement that I've developed around this to build the resources and the projects that I'm building now in higher education. I'm not going to read that out, but that's part of what I'm doing. So the learning ecosystem looks at the dynamic interplay of human-AI world domains. And as I say, this isn't just international collaboration. It's a fundamental reimagining of how we learn and create knowledge together. And I think this is so pertinent to the AI era that we've moved into. Not moving into, we have moved into it in a big way. And I guess my approach to AI is that, I don't I don't approach things with a fear factor, and I know we have to be ethical, we have to be mindful of what the impact of AI, but we also have to use it. There's no alternative. And one of the questions people are asking is, will AI replace humans, particularly in education? And there are some interesting things going on around the world to do with this in all levels of education. But my question is, how will AI help us become more human? Let me show you or talk about briefly some experiences when I was in Europe this year. I was in Nice, University Côte d'Azur, their International Digital Week, and I was in collaboration with them, I designed a whole day workshop called Building Bridges, where we ran through a flat classroom workshop process. It's very similar to what I did years ago. So we had groups, we had 150 people across 3 rooms. It was a bit crowded, but we had groups of 5 to 6 people, the ideation stage, identifying the problem, and then the so what stage of coming up with a moonshot pitch. You can see people pitching at tables. We did a rotation. I used to do this years ago with students. It's very engaging. You know how people come to workshops and they go, oh, I've got to talk to people. I don't know if I want to do this. I'm tired. It's already day 4 of the conference. People said to me, this is so engaging. It was a hot day. We let them go to lunch for an hour, and the university people said to me, they're not going to come back. They're gone. I said, oh, they'll be back. They all came back. They said, no, we want to finish this. It was such a great day. I designed an AI chatbot called Bridget, Digital Bridges, that they used to help them design their vision statement and to help them develop moonshot pitch material around their idea. I've written a blog post about it. This is one of the presentations. This is the team that won in our room, and they came up with an idea. It's on the blog anyway. I won't dwell on that. So just is a little bit more about using AI agents to support asynchronous global team collaboration. So of course that workshop was synchronous, but I'm really now, it's a no-brainer for me. The next step for me is to now integrate AI into global collaboration, synchronous and asynchronous. And of course, what happens when AI joins the team? All right, we're going to encourage student autonomy and global responsibility while they have an AI agent as part of their team. Just a quick word about the work I'm doing with building agents. Encouraged by my mentor in Finland, Christoph, I have built Sarcastic Socrates, which is a really interesting one, and the Contrary Connie and Collaboration Cosmo. So these are some of the things that I'm sharing with people to interact with and to see how does this help, rather than just going straight to ChatGPT or straight to Claude. And I have them all. How does building a persona and sharing that with people and students, how does that support? So this is part of my research as well. Last week at the ICDE conference, International Council for Open and Distance Education, this is my new tribe. I'm not a distie at the moment, but ICDE is my new tribe. They're actually based in Oslo. I visited them when I was in Europe this year. I ran a workshop, Build or Babble, and we used Collaboration Cosmo as an equal learning partner in each team. You can see some of those images there. We also had a virtual team. So when they've got those 2 laptops joined together, sorry, it looks a bit awkward, doesn't it? But the virtual team were pitching to the real team and vice versa. So that's what that's all about. I'm also running a Cosmogogy collaborative pilot. This is joining higher education students together. I think we've got 5 different countries in the pilot at the moment, and they're using Collaboration Cosmo as a way to bring that team together asynchronously. So it acts as a project manager, as a thought leader, as a equal partner. Have you thought about this? Oh, and it also knows the background to the project and can update them on, well, it's week 4, where should I be? What should our team be doing? It also does translations for non-English speaking students in the group. There it is. I'm using the tool Boodlebox for this agent. I'm actually meeting with Boodlebox in about 2 hours. They're based in the States. I'm going to talk to them more about their tool and how I could be using it in a better way. But it's all experimental at the moment. Some students really like using it. Others don't quite see the point. They're using WhatsApp, of course, as well to keep their teams together, and that's great. Process and timeline, I'm going to skip over that. We're running out of time. So I guess, and this is, harking back to the making sure that when you are working globally, you're visible. So this is beyond invisibility, coming back to this idea of becoming to being a global group. I gave a presentation in Finland related with a jazz metaphor, and I'm a jazz piano player, but talking about, you can't just be a soloist and, okay, move up to being a duo, but then playing in a jazz band is the ultimate. And I've done that, and I know what that feels like. And I know each of you has done something collaborative with other people, and you know what being in a global group means, or being in a group. Hopefully you'll know what being in a global group means and feels like. And that's what I want people to understand and to feel and to know how to work within that. There's a whole thing about assessment. I'm actually doing another talk in about 12 hours time to a conference in Slovenia. They've asked me to talk about collaborative assessment. So there are some ideas there using that human AI world construct, and some ideas for, how do we assess this? And of course, there's lots to talk about. And finally, and sorry, Lucy, I know we're just about on time. I was going to spend a bit more time on this, but I've rattled on about other things. This is a new concept for me, and you may have heard of it before, but I didn't hear about this until I was in the United Kingdom this year, talking to colleagues at different universities. This CAVES idea, colleagues against virtually everything. And I'm sure you know someone in your learning environment or your organization who says, no, that's no good. No, we can't do that. No, we're not doing that. No, absolutely not. And I had a chat to sarcastic Socrates, my AI agent, and this is what he thought about CAVES. He said, guardians of mediocrity, protectors of, we've always done it this way. I'm sure you've heard people say that. We've always done it this way, therefore it must be best. And part-time dream crushers in sensible shoes. One wonders how they ever made it past to the Renaissance. I just love that. He's so good. He suggested we develop a CAVE bypass manual, a subversive survival guide for transforming higher education. Well, you could do it for any level of education. So that's one of my next projects. Watch this space if you want to come and join me while we develop a CAVE bypass manual. That's what I'm going to do. So I guess, and this is in closing, this being able to collaborate within a paradox. So you're not global or local, you're both. You're local and global. You're inclusive and you're innovative. You're technologically sophisticated and deeply human. All right, so we have to combine these. This is something that I know. I know this now. And remember the chapter that Tom Friedman wrote. If you're not doing it, it's not happening. And this is my mantra as well. People say, why are you doing all this still? I have a lot of work to do still, and I'm in the latter part of my career now. And I'm also getting like, and when is that career over? It's never over. Not for me anyway. And there I am with my two dogs. That's especially for Lucy, who asked about my dogs. That's Blossom on the left, my black dog, and my new one, 6-month-old puppy, Basil. These are sheepadoodles, Old English sheepdog poodle crosses. And they bring a little bit of joy into my life these days. And there's all my links. And I think, and some references at the end as well. So I'm not sure if there's any time for questions or whatever. Thank you, Star, for that comment. It's been an absolute pleasure being able to share with you today. Yes, I love my dogs too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie, for being here. I was here for part of the for the first half of the presentation, and then I had to run to a room for an emergency. So I can't wait to watch the recording and catch up with what you've been doing. And as our helper, Super Tim, was mentioning, he's from Bangladesh, and he mentioned that he was born the year that you were working there. So it's surreal. Like I run into students now that I had when they were in middle school, and they're having children. They're in their 30s now, and like we blink and this time goes by.
That's right.
But but I was also reflecting on the energy and the collaboration that we all had back in the days of Web 2.0. And my hope is that we can get that back or something, because it was really an exciting time. And I feel like education is has lost a little of its pizzazz due to the pandemic and due to more bureaucracy being, at least here in the United States, being put on it. And we need to keep our teachers going, right?
Yeah, we need bold moves. I think there's a conservatism that's come in since COVID. And I thought COVID would be a major turning point for global collaboration, and it hasn't been, as you know.
Yeah.
We're too conservative. We have administrators who are not particularly good leaders at the moment, and they're not bold enough.
Yeah.
I see that across the world.
Yeah, and it's a shame, and so that's our mission, everyone, is to figure out how we can bring that spark back into our own little corners of the world. So thanks for coming, Julie. Let's stay in touch. Can't wait to catch up with you again. Everyone else, the expo is happening next, so drop into the booths and meet our wonderful sponsors. They just want to chat with you and get to know you and build their professional learning networks. It's a very informal time. And then we have another set of presentations at the 5 o'clock Central Hour. And then we have one other keynote and then more sessions till 9 o'clock. So there's still like almost a half day left of things to take in. And I hope everyone will stick around. We are publishing these sessions fairly quickly. So if you go to the replay tab, you'll be able to see them too if you missed anything. And you have Julie's contact information, so please follow up with her and stay in touch. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Lucy. Bye, everyone.